Well, it's August, and that means it's the height of hurricane season. So we're on the radar tracking two storms. There's Tropical Storm Isaac, of course, and then there's Hurricane Biden. The vice president is crashing the Republican convention if Isaac doesn't do it first. The tropical storm is headed straight for Florida. It could become a hurricane before Monday's kickoff. Even if Isaac isn't a direct hit, its heavy rains and winds could cause trouble. Convention organizers have emergency plans in place. They're running a mock hurricane drill in May. And Tampa's mayor, Bob Buckhorn, is even prepared to call the whole thing off if necessary. Would you believe it? He's a Democrat. Sincerely doubt.
We cannot catch a break here.
that is going to actually happen. As for Hurricane Biden, his forecasted path is set. He has campaign events in Tampa on Monday and Tuesday. That's day one and day two of the convention. The RNC plans to respond with its own storm of surrogates at the DNC in Charlotte the next week. Right now, the vice president is blowing through Michigan. Vice President Biden there in Detroit, stumping for the president on a campaign stop. So we want to know if his straight talk helps or hurts the president's re-election campaign. Some call them gaffes. Others believe it's just political gold. We're going to put the question to David Drucker. He's the associate politics editor at Roll Call. He is also a former office mate of mine. I covered the House. He covered politics. We all had fun. David, it's great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Steve.
Let's talk about this question of Biden helping or hurting. I mean, I'll just give you what I think. I've always thought the guy is sort of an underrated asset for Obama. I mean, we make all sorts of Biden jokes. I don't think he hurt at all in 2008. You could argue he might have helped a little bit. Probably won the debate with Sarah Palin. Has clearly been a consequential player in the administration. Do you see any downside to having this guy around?
No, not really. I'll tell you that in 2008, it was clear to me that Barack Obama chose Senator Biden because he brought a wealth of experience, particularly on foreign policy, and so he was able to send a signal to voters that he was going to surround himself with experienced players, and that if anybody was a little wary, we were still really coming out of the September 11th mindset that he's going to be strong on national security, at least in terms of the knowledge and advisors that he surrounded himself with. And the thing about vice presidents is this: people aren't going to the polls to vote for vice president, and one of the reasons you want somebody on the ticket with you is so they can do all of the attacking and say sort of all of the rude things you kind of want to say to push a message, so the top of the ticket, the presidential candidate, doesn't have to do it. So to the extent that Biden is running around saying things that some people might find a little untoward for a vice president, in a sense that's his job, and the only way he's going to hurt Obama is if people have decided that they're already so angry at Obama, they're already going to vote against him, that they can say, and that Biden, that's another reason why. But it's not going to be a reason for the president to lose support.
So they're sending him down. The Obama campaign is sending him down to Tampa next week. Obviously a mischievous move on their part. What kinds of things do you think he's going to be talking about, and do you think it's really going to have any kind of disruptive effect on the Republican convention?
I don't think it'll disrupt the Republicans at all, but let's face it, is there anything that Vice President Biden won't say? So I'm not going to predict that there's anything the guy wouldn't do if he feels that it was part of a message he wanted to push or something that just happened to be on his mind at the spur of the moment. Will it disrupt the Republicans? No.
Well, look, guys, from the hurricane that's coming through to Biden wedding crashing, it just feels like we can't catch a break. But I will say, I really hate this move. I hate that the RNC is sending surrogates to the DNC to crash. I hate that Biden's coming over here. I think it just looks so desperate. Is this the state of both of these campaigns, that they have to send people over to crash our parties? Well, it just reeks of desperation and insecurity.
I had the same thought, and then I'll let David get in with his response. But when the Romney campaign was sending their bus honking around the Obama rallies, I mean, it just feels like middle school. Really, it feels like Christy Flick. It reminds me of some of my tactics in my high school elections. Go ahead, David.
That's what campaigns have become. It used to be that each party would let the other side have its convention. The top of the ticket would go fishing somewhere, go on vacation. You wouldn't hear from them for a few days. Yeah. But nobody anymore is willing to cede any sort of advantage. And the one thing I'd say, in not so much defense of the campaigns and the candidates, but just as a matter of fact, is that the partisans and the supporters of each of the campaigns don't want their ticket to lie low. They want them to constantly be fighting and, you know, as you note, sort of making mischief. And so it's going to make their supporters happy, and that's part of why this happens.
I find it very unbecoming.
David, I mean, it seems interesting political theater to me and totally what it fits in the modern political era, but it's kind of what you're saying. David, you kind of touched on this before, but in general, do VPs matter electorally? Could we put, you know, whoever the nominee at the top of the ticket and put almost anybody in government beneath them and still come out with the same amount at the end?
Well, I think that vice presidents, historically, we've seen that they can hurt the top of the ticket. They're not necessarily, nor have I ever really seen them win the race for the nominee himself. I would say, though, that vice presidential candidates have been helpful in presenting a storyline and in creating a sort of energy around a candidate such that they can be particularly helpful. And the one thing I don't know if we're going to know yet for another couple of cycles, another couple of presidents, is we've seen the federal government get sort of so big and so sometimes unwieldy that at least since Bill Clinton, we've seen the vice presidential pick sort of been viewed and treated like a partner in executive government. And to the extent that vice presidents are now, you know, a lot more valuable than a warm bucket of spit, it could be that, you know, we're in the middle of a shift as to how those candidates are seen. But I still believe that at the end of the day, if people don't like the top of the ticket, they're not going to go and support him or her anyway just because they like the vice president.
One thing that strikes me as unusual about the Paul Ryan VP pick is that he has, in a lot of ways, his policy agenda has really overshadowed what we know of the Romney policy agenda, and that seems to me to be a bit unusual. Do you think that's going to change the dynamic of the number 2 choice for the Romney-Ryan ticket?
No, I don't think so. I think once everybody gets over the fact that it's Paul Ryan and his budget and all the things he's voted for, we're going to get back to the nuts and bolts, which is what does Mitt Romney want to do? Don't forget we have 3 presidential debates, only 1 vice presidential debate, where he'll get grilled about his plans. And I think from the convention forward, in whatever way they want, they're going to sort of tell us more, tell voters more about Mitt Romney's plans. And, you know, Paul Ryan has said now 55 times, I joined the Romney ticket, I support his ideas. I think what Paul Ryan did for Mitt Romney was he lent Mitt Romney credibility with the party so that people didn't just feel good about Ryan. They felt good about Romney and the choices they think he'll make as a president if he's elected. And I think that's why Ryan was valuable for Romney in this particular campaign. But it's still going to get down to Romney. I think most of the attention is going to be about Romney. And I think Paul Ryan is likely to acquit himself ably enough that he will not be the story in much of the way that Sarah Palin was 4 years ago.
David, I want to ask you one more question. I think we've got about 30 seconds left to go, but I want to pivot to something else that you're an expert on, the study of Steve Kornacki. You used to sit next to him, as we've said. Is there any light you can shed on the man? Is there any little story that you could tell us briefly that would shine a light on who Steve Kornacki really is?
And by the way, it's his birthday.
Yes.
You should know.
Steve Kornacki does not like taking orders from anybody. He never wore a suit until he got on TV, which is why I'm surprised he took this gig, because the guy hates to wear a tie.
And
That's
look,
true. We know that.
I don't know if you can see me, but this week, Drucker, no tie.
And then that's the story I've been waiting to tell, and now it's all gone to nothing.
David Drucker, I'm going to stop you before you can embarrass me at all, but thanks for joining us. We're going to have you back, definitely. So next up, hearts are aching in the Republican Party. Oh, boy, but our GOP leaders less concerned about what Todd Akin said than they are about who heard it. We'll put that through the spin cycle as we roll on for this Wednesday, August 22nd.